Good afternoon, y'all. We are in Genesis 46. Okay, here we go. Genesis 46. And Israel took his journey with all that he had. And came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. Verse 3. And he said, I am God. And guys, let me finish that verse real quick, because I'm tired of this. It's ridiculous. The God of thy father, fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. We're going to pause right there for a second. All the debates, all the philosophy, all the science, all the riffraff. Let's just shut everything down right here in verse 46, verse 3. And drop the mic and go home, grab your popcorn, clear out, pick up your trash when you leave the theater, go out, have a nice day, come again. Let's try this one more time, y'all. For all of the people in AA, Atheist Anonymous, all of that, about what case we need to bring, what we need to say, all that. Here it goes. Let's try this one more time for those that have ears to hear, okay, and eyes to perceive, okay. Let's try this one more time. And he said, I am God. Let's try this one more time. Let's back up for a second. Okay. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am God. No, there's no glitch, there's no lag. The only lag is in your department. You missed the message in 46 verse 3. He didn't say, oh, demonstrate me. He didn't say, oh, the ark wasn't big enough. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go have a debate. He said, I am God. All right, y'all have a nice day. See you tomorrow. Case closed. All I want you to do, guys, is consider the position that you're taking against that. If you're going against that, I want you to consider what you're potentially going against. Okay, I've taken the atheistic perspective. It's just I'm using my own logic and this and that, and that's how I'm coming to the conclusion, but I'm deciding that that's not the case. Guys, this is not whether or not you want onions on your cheeseburger. This is not whether or not, you want to sleep 15 minutes late. This is going against the only true God. I just wanted you to consider the gravity of your position against this. This is not just a standard topic, how you feel about Democrat, Republican. No, this is not your political standing. Okay? It says it right here. And I'm going to go to another version just to check on that. You see what it says right there. Okay. 46 verse 3. Okay. It's just simple stuff. People don't want it to be simple. You know, let's God show us signs. Let's do all this. Let's do this. The Christ resurrected. Let's part Red Seas. But don't just come out and say you're God. Don't be that simple. Please, God. Don't do that. We like Halloween costumes. We like masquerades. We like mysteries. But don't just come out and say you're God. That would be too easy for us. Hello. My name's Robert. I'm an atheist. Thank you for welcoming me into Atheist Anonymous, but today, come get your white chip. I need a sponsor. I need a sponsor. God, this is ridiculous, man. Alright, let me check the other version because they got these new Atheist Anonymous meetings. That's really what we're doing here. I'm in recovery. You know, I'm no longer an atheist. You know, I'll hear everything you have to say, but when you leave no room for the supernatural, and let me remind you guys that modern science is leaning more and more and more away from evolution. And I don't have my names and data and all that. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. Modern science is leaning more and more and more away from evolution. There's very little, there's big gaps in that, big gaps. And the more they look at the DNA and how that works, how DNA works, it's just multifaceted stuff. But that's just one of the things. The more they look at DNA and how that works, carrying information, there's no way that you can there's no way that you can reduce the complexity to say that at one point came from something else, because every part of the DNA is vital to the other part of the DNA. So it's not like what came first, the chicken or the egg. Because you can't have one part of the DNA without the other part. And guys, and once you see it spelled out and understand how that machine works of the DNA, it's more advanced than any computer system ever. Okay? Way more advanced. And there's layers of depth into that. And the more deep it goes, the more complex it gets. Okay? But just on the surface of a DNA machine, how that works with the polymerase, I think, but there's different stuff. There's different pieces of the DNA machine that you can't have one without the other. It's absolutely vital to have these different parts. So what they're discovering, or not discovering, what they have discovered is that the intricate vital parts of the DNA, in order for it to function, it has to have these different parts. And the more they understand and look into it, they're saying, okay, there's no way that this could have evolved into this. Because there's separate parts that are vital. They're completely separate parts, but they're functioning simultaneously, dependent on each other. Okay, so and that's just the basic stuff of basic stuff. Okay, so you can't just say, okay, well, how did this develop into this? Given the evolutionary model, how can you say that this evolved into this? By all the stuff that it does. And it's super advanced stuff, like beyond, it's mind-blowing the way this stuff functions. It's mind-blowing the way it carries information, the way it copies stuff, the way it informs, it picks, it selects, it rejects. It does all kind of stuff that doesn't make any sense on an evolutionary model. There's no way that something that small could make that many exact choices. Because logic tells us that the human brain has to be at this capacity to make these type of decisions. That's not the case on that level. But that's what evolution will have you think, that you need a modern brain. No pun intended, modern brain. But that's what evolution will have you thinking, that we are so smart because of the, the proteins that we ate, and it allowed our brains to develop into this size, and now we have this cognitive ability based upon its size and all this. No, that's not the case. Something microscopic has way more advanced brain than we do to make the decisions that we make to make the decisions that it makes. Not just one thing like, oh, white and black. No, it makes very complicated decisions and multifaceted decisions. It is a algorithm that it does. Okay, and this is not just me saying this. I'm studying. Okay, the DNA has an algorithmic stuff. How do you tell me that goes against all evolutionary theory? Period. End of story. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. And that's just science. And they said, so but that breaks the whole evolutionary model. Okay? Period. Period. End of story. End of story. But it's not about an evolutionary model. It's about the truth. Evolution versus creation. Old Earth. Young Earth. Whatever it is. It's obviously not what the world thinks it is. Okay, so I'm not saying everybody's our enemy and all this, but they said that a lot of the evolutionary models was fabricated. A lot of the research that was done was fabricated. I'm not going to say no names, but the names are out there. I'm going to direct y'all to a couple channels that are just Christ-centered and God-centered. It's going to give you a lot of the lowdown of what's been going on over the past few decades, science since modern science, the 60s, 70s, 80s, or on up to whatever we call modern science. There's been so much money poured into a lot of these stuff and these programs of science backed upon this evolutionary model. So what they said was a couple of these guys basically fabricated a lot of stuff to make it look like the evolutionary thing, because for one, they didn't want to be wrong. Number two, their whole life's work was based upon that. Number three, I'm just saying, they basically fabricated a lot of stuff and threw it out there like it was science. Okay, that's not science. That's fabrication. We're talking about embryos and it's not how we all supposed to look like this, and pictures of embryos, diagrams, published stuff that wasn't exactly published. I mean, it wasn't exactly exact, but it was recognized as public scientific data. And you just have to go look. But I'm gonna recommend you guys to two channels. One is Standing for Truth. Okay. And on there, it's considered a ministry, but they have all the worst skeptics on there. Not the worst. We love skeptics. That's how we learn. But they have big time skeptics on there. Atheists. Creation. I mean, evolution guys, and that's awesome. I got nothing against those guys, but sometimes it takes a nitty grittier look to see that everything that science has posted and stuff is not really complete, and a lot of stuff is based upon stuff that wasn't exactly factual. A lot of the stuff was fabricated that became recognized. There's a lot of money. It's a money thing too. There's a lot of money poured into that type of research. A lot of money and stuff involved in all this stuff. Not to mention spiritual warfare. So it's not just about being right or wrong. There's money involved. There's medical science. Everything is evolved around this stuff. It's not just about your ideology. There's other bigger power players involved. It's spiritual warfare. It's medical. It's money. Medical stuff. It's research, funds, grants. A lot of this stuff, people's careers. People's stuff is on the line depending on how research comes out. So I'm just saying, man, it's not just a cut and dry thing with a science thing. Okay, but when you look at the DNA, and the other channel I want to recommend to you is, this is a guy I discovered on the Standing for Truth. They have live debates, recorded debates. It's mostly just debates, but everybody's just a gentleman, because just because you don't know the truth or we're in a disagreement doesn't mean that you guys are our enemy. Atheists, I love you. You can have my personal number. You can come reach out. We can go have breakfast. I mean, anything I can do to help you, to show you that it's not just about me being right. It's about, if you have something to show me, show me. But how can you tell me? Because that's what we're doing here. We're standing for truth. This is to further the kingdom of God. This is not about being right. This is about furthering the kingdom, doing my due diligence to do everything in my power, with my time, so that I'm not just throwing stuff out there. I'm doing my research, y'all. And I just started this like a week or two ago, going down these rabbit holes that people are sending me down. First it was the Exodus. Then it was, the Ark. And Bill Nye is a school teacher. He literally he's really a comedian. Okay, I love Bill Nye. Dude, Bill Nye is not no real scientist. Okay, end of story. I mean, he may be, but as scientists, and like I was saying, the other channel I was talking about, the dude that I discovered on the Standing for Truth channel on YouTube, Standing for Truth. Absolute knockout stuff. Gentleman's tough. We're talking, all that stuff. It's never just one person behind a camera like me. And I don't know where God is going to take this ministry that I have here. But the sky's the limit as far as I'm concerned. If it means pointing people in a good direction. But the dude on there, his name is Nephilim Free. He's got his own channel where he does lives too. And a lot of stuff is recorded on YouTube. Nephilim Free. Nephil, I want to say UM or YM. Nephilim Free, one word. It's a symbol of a hand. He never really shows his face, I don't think. But you talk about bruh knows about everything, bro. I mean, so, and it's Christ-centered. It's Christ-backed. It's God-centered. Okay, but guess what? We want to hear everything. We're not closed doors to anything. We're not closed doors to all realms of knowledge. The spiritual aspect, the atheist, arguments within religion. He's not real. He's more of a scientific guy against atheists, and that's what we live for. That's what I live for. Show me. But don't sit here and tell me that you're already disqualifying the supernatural when that's God's ultimate character. You officially put a brick wall up about God's main character. How do you expect to ever believe in God when you're disqualifying his main character? His main character trait. And something just came to mind. It's kind of awkward, but okay. If everything exists within the laws, If nothing can break the supernatural, if nothing is above the law, then why do cops speak? Cops drive around speaking on cell phones on their head. Like this. It's against the law to do that. Guess what? They're above the law. I'm just giving you an example. Everything isn't fit into your picture of everything has to follow the laws of natural stuff. It's against the law for you to talk on the phone going down the road on a cell phone on your head. But guess what? Cops do it. Nothing stops them. That's what they do. They can do that. They're not disqualified from the law. They do it. So don't sit here and tell me that everything has to fit guidelines of what's supposed to be. Because I'm giving you an example right here. If a cop can drive down the road talking on his cell phone like this, a police officer, I have the utmost respect for law enforcement. Okay. Don't sit here and tell me everything has to fit the law, because stuff happens all the time that doesn't fit the script. Okay. So, but what I'm saying is, if God can make the world out of nothing, and if DNA, a literal blob of nothing, has algorithm stuff that's literally more advanced than big computers and stuff like that, than chips and all that, and doesn't have a real brain or anything like that, a capacity is making algorithmic choices and to process vast amounts of information and do multifunctional things. That's algorithmic stuff. And you can't have one part or the other. You can't tell me that evolved. Anyway, you just have to look. I'm telling you, bro, the line of thinking that you're going across is not working, bro. And I'm willing to hear it. And I'm gonna hear it. I'm gonna hear it. Because like I said, the mainstream science over the last 5, 10, 20 years, recently, really more recently, is leaning more and more away from evolution. It's really a conspiracy that it's on the low now that, that's really not the case. And it's just not spoken of that much. We don't want to rain on everybody's parade, We don't want to rain on everybody's parade and change the school curriculums and all that. So, but that's one of those things, man. But look, we're doing the Bible study. I'm just trying to show y'all, man, that everything's not what it seems. How can you disprove God? How can you prove God when you're already disqualifying his main character trait to do the impossible? He raises the dead. He parts Red Seas. He calls creation into existence out of nothing. He's out of time and space. He's unreachable. At the same time, he's all entwined. So, and he says right here, and this brings me back to my point, which is a good point. I am God. And he said, I am God. 46 verse 3, and that's where I'm going right now. On the other translation to see if it has something different. 46 verse 3. Okay, here it is. Then he said, I am God. So before I move on, I just want to reinforce, to go against that, realize potentially, okay, for the sake of argument, I'm going to ask you to allow that it might be possible that he's saying and what he means and is true. For the sake of argument. For the sake of argument, I'm going to allow to say that this is not true. I mean, that it is true. That you allow that it is true. I know it's too simple. I know it's not very fun to share at your AA meeting. God came out and told me he was God. plainly, it just didn't make sense for me. I didn't understand that. It was too short, too simple. Okay, so he says, I am God. Alright. That's this point I want to make, y'all. It says it right there. It's not up for debate. It's not up in the air. God said it right there. I am God. Okay. And that's pretty much case closed, man. I consider that the pinnacle of this channel. We finally reached it against the atheists. That's my biggest argument. That's really my biggest point. 46 verse 3. And he said, I am God. Let's read on now, finally. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt. And you know, one more thing, guys. For the sake of argument, I'm going to ask you that you allow to look at what the stuff he says and the way he says it on a grand scale and a authoritative scale, a scale of authority, and a scale of nations. At the same time, a scale of commanding obedience and stuff like this. For the sake of argument, I just want to ask you to allow that if that was God, if God was real, that would sound a lot like God, wouldn't it? A firm hand. At the same time, you know, whatever. I'm saying, isn't that kind of like God, like the kind of stuff he's saying? For the sake of argument, I want to ask that you allow that. Okay, for one, he's declaring he's God. Number two, he's predicting the future. Number three, he's still allowing you to play a role in that. Number four, the stuff he's saying is coming true down the line. Okay, I'm just saying it's just multi-faceted stuff that you're not allowing or talking about. Multi-faceted. The authority that he's speaking with, the grand scale national timeline that he's speaking of. When he speaks, he's speaking across centuries. He's speaking across nations. He's speaking to you personally. Isn't this a sign of omnipotence and omniscience and all powerfulness at the same time personal? Isn't this the God characteristics that we know? So for the sake of argument, I'm just going to ask that you allow what I'm saying to fit into a character of a God, the God, like character. For the sake of argument, allow that this is pretty godlike stuff. Not to mention the courtesy and the frankness of informing him. It's just, okay. So all I'm saying is, okay, let's say I'll allow for the sake of argument. Okay, this isn't true. Somebody made this up. What did they sit do? What did they, for the sake of argument, I'm going to allow, because I'm open-minded. For the sake of argument, I'm going to allow that this isn't true. Under how many facets of fake circumstances you want to allow to into this? Oh, they had it wrong, or they made a mistake, or they just fabricated it. Mythology, whatever you want to throw on this. I'm going to allow that, and I wanted you to just consider the implications of what somebody did. Okay, let's hey guys, you know what? I just think it'd be better for the people if we designed to God. Okay, so what are we going to say? How are we going to do this to make this look believable? How are we going to do this? I'm sorry, I just don't see this happening. Just based upon logic, the world that I know just grabs stuff and takes it. They don't take. I've been in places where there is no authority, and just what, people don't sit here and write stories to get what they want. They just reach out and take it and kill stuff. That's the way that works. It's not about writing stories about long-winded stuff over the centuries so that they can control people. That's not how that works. When people want to control stuff, they kill people. They don't write stories. Preach? Okay, so I'm just telling you how it works. People don't write stories to control people. Okay, they kill people to control people. Look at the Holocaust. Look at the world, man. This is a world of power and violence. It said they don't write stories to control people. Not to mention all of this over the centuries. Fulfilled prophecy. Okay, so I'm just allowing, okay, if somebody made that up, what degree do you go to try to imitate a God if they were going to exist? People don't have that kind of time on their hands, bro, or that kind of messed up. Not to mention they're going to make a good God that's worth following. You know, it just doesn't make any sense, the whole other side of the camp. So I'm weighing the options on both my sides. It's just not adding up. So if you take a further look, you'll see that. So verse 3, man, I am God. It says, 46 verse 3. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not. Go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. And he's remembering him. He's showing him that he was the father, God of Abraham. Or was it Isaac? Isaac. Okay, so it's the same God. He's making it known. And you know, if you notice, God is always there, even though the people of the world are dying, he's still there. He's obviously not affected by all this stuff in the world. I mean, dude, you know what I'm saying? He's obviously, his character is obviously distinct from the man. I think it's an important point to notice. I try to point out everything that has any type of meaning or significance. God's character is distinct from the man. Oh, they don't want to talk about that. It's all about he's unfair, he's pro-slavery, la 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 la. Anything you could say, God can be all those things and still be God. Okay? End of story. Have a nice day. But that's pretty much an open and shut case. 46 verse 3. I am God. It's not Ruby Tuesday, it's not Fuddruckers, it's God. Okay? Would you like fries with that? It's I am God, okay? End of story. The God of your father. Go forth. For I fear not. Go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. So guys, if you have any free time, if you take any of my advice, I'm just a guy behind the camera. I do a Bible study every day for an hour. And also I'll give you the updates of my spiritual journey of how we're getting to the bottom of stuff. Okay? So I just want to back up 1 second. Well, I was telling you, I was going to recommend you, if I can offer you anything in your free time to study that has more credibility than me, go to the channel Standing for Truth on YouTube. Okay? And also Nephilim Free on YouTube. So I just want to throw out there that the main points that people try to throw out, I just want to throw this out there. The main points: the ark, the Exodus, the Christ, right, resurrecting. Yeah, it's not logical. I get that. There's still a lot of evidence supporting that. Okay, the Christ. We got Gospels. The Exodus. We got a people that left Egypt. These are facts. End of story. They really left Egypt. They really were away from Egypt. When they were in Egypt, they really were away from Egypt. These are just facts. It's not just me saying it. There's more to it. I'm just saying, it's not just us saying that this stuff happened. There really is corroborating evidence, despite all logical other arguments. The ark. There's a lot of evidence supporting the ark. It's not just a throw out. We're not just throwing something out there and saying, oh, we believe this. No, there's a lot of stuff supporting it. End of story. Now, mind you, you have to leave some room for the supernatural. Okay? Because I can assure you guys, I can tell you one thing. This is a basic logic. If God wasn't real, we wouldn't be here. We would have died off as a race a long time ago. We would have had atom bombs dropped everywhere. Look at Hiroshima. Look at the Holocaust. Look at the world, man. If God wasn't real, we would not still be existing and breathing. This world would have been catastrophic. Pollution would have killed us a long time ago. The only thing sustaining the world today and how we're still alive, learning, breathing, not having a horrible existence is because of God. So if the evolutionary model was true, we would have been dead a long time ago. End of story. End of story. Allow that. Allow that to know that God is merciful. He's given us time. He's given us a chance as a human race for the harvest to be made. All grapes aren't good grapes, okay? Not every grape is going to make it to the press. Okay? But God's going to get his stuff, okay? And it's not necessarily all about what he wants. I mean, really, but God has been merciful, and he is merciful to allow us to exist in the world today, to have good time and stuff like that, and whatever the virtues of life are. Oh, don't even talk about virtues to virtue and things of that nature. Don't talk about virtues to the atheists. They don't mean anything. That's just ancient Buddhist, Hindu principles. I mean, it is, but virtue is a real thing. Okay, spiritual principles mean nothing to the atheist. Okay, but I'm just talking about the things in this world that mean anything to us, that exist today, is not because of some evolutionary model that we just got here and we're fortunate enough to have that happen. That's not how that works. And I'm going to say this one more time and let this soak in. If the evolutionary model was true and God didn't exist, the world would be an absolutely terrible place. We would have been dead a long time ago. There'd be no air to breathe. The earth would be cooked up. There would have been atom bombs dropped everywhere. It would be literally a fallout world if that was the case. But no, God is God, and God is pulling the strings. God is allowing us to continue. And you need to have a gratitude towards that. It's not just we're here. Enjoy it, live your life. No. I mean, just give the credit where it's due. Look at all the pollution in the world. Do you know how much smoke and stuff comes up from factories? Do you know how precarious we are floating through space? Do you know how many dangers there are in the world? nuclear weapons, tyrants, all the crazy stuff in the world. But guess what? We're still here in our little happy place with our fast food and, and our cell phones and anything you want, you can get. That's not the way the world works. Don't you see there's a hand on the world allowing us to live? End of story, man. End of story. And you want to tell me that the driving force of this world is just some good sense that we have? We're just good people. And we just want to do others a good favor because whatever sense we have. No, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. The only good thing and sense that we have, if you look at the animal kingdom, they have no remorse. It's kill or be killed. Eat. The food chain. That's the way the world is. A vicious, merciless, pitiless, remorseless thing. That's reality. But us as humans with the divine spark, we understand that it's not necessarily like that. That's a lack of consciousness. But as conscious humans, we can be in touch with the abstract. We can be in touch with virtues. We can be in touch with things of the spiritual, knowing that God exists through His Word and everything. We can know that that's not really the case. We have a higher calling. And I hope I'm not getting too off track, but some of this stuff has to be addressed, man. And I'm formulating stuff and trying to put it into layman's terms, a grand scale view. So taking religion is not just a cop-out. It's not just a easy way out. I've said it before. The Bible theology, and I'm just going to stop right there because that I am God thing just dropped the mic. We're at 46 verse 3. This God thing, this Bible, is not an easy way out. It's not an easy answer. It's not antiquated. This theology and this is way more requiring of you. Not to mention, he's speaking over centuries. Where do you see science doing that? Where do you see science that calls you into obedience? Where do you see science that calls for self-control? Where do you see science? And don't get me wrong, science is great because it's ultimately uncovering the truth that it is God in charge. It is an ultimate creator. Science is a tool but science is not necessarily against or opposing God. Because the more they discover, the more they're uncovering that the Bible is the truth. And the cutting edge stuff that they're saying, that's not something they really talk about. It's not really allowed to be talked about. You got to remember, the devil's in the world, man. The mainstream channels that are talking about this stuff, they're not on TV, they're on YouTube. Okay? It's not allowed to just come out and talk about stuff like that because whatever the powers that be are, God's in charge. I don't know what's going on about all that, but the stuff is not really out there about the trueness of all this stuff. Okay? So I feel like I'm off on a ramble here, man. But we still have a couple minutes. We're going to read on for a minute. And I will go down with thee. No, I will go down with thee. How are you saying? For I will make 46 verse 3. For I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will surely bring thee up again. And Joseph put his hand upon thine eyes. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, and their little ones, and their wives, and the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. So, and I just want to reinforce the point that, okay, it seems highly unplausible to me, just based upon whatever type of sense that I have, or whatever type of intuition I have, or whatever type of common sense, good judgment. It seems highly implausible to me but I'm allowing the possibility. I'm allowing the possibility that if this was fabricated, and God likes that you're a skeptic. God likes critical thinking, because at the end of the day, He didn't say He wasn't God. He said, I'm God, right here. So if you don't agree, that's on you. But God has made it completely fair and completely apparent without any other, He's made a clear distinction. But for the sake of argument, and for the sake of reasoning, to build a good faith, I'm going to allow that if this was fabricated, I'm sorry, I just don't see it. I mean, without even trying to go through what that would look like of fabricating this. So how does that work? Do you say, okay, we have the Jews here today, let's go back and write a story intermittently picking places and times on an individual where we're going to insert God's quotes, and let's say it in a way that when God speaks, it fits the historical narrative. I'm sorry, I'm trying to visualize what that would look like if this was fabricated. Because that's really the main weapon. Okay, let's think about the possibilities if this isn't true. Okay, it was a mistake. It was folklore, it was mythology. Okay, it was fabricated. That's the only thing that would make sense to me about the fabrication. Because it's pretty clear. I am God. Okay? And God allows other gods. He says it quite clearly. I'm the Most High God. So that whole other religion line of thinking that says, oh, because there's 5,300 other religions and 3 million gods in one religion, that's a dead argument for me. So that goes out the window. Okay. God clearly allows other gods. Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, all the other gods are just another extension of Him anyway. So I mean, just everything's an extension of Him, whether they acknowledge Him or not. Okay, so put that to the side. Let's allow the fabrication topic for a more logical sense. That would make more sense to me if this was fabricated. But if they're fabricating, let's slide back and look. What would that look like when you want to write back in history and try to insert and make a fabricated story? What would that look like? Okay, let's say right here, let's pick this personal dude and let's say this so that it fits what happened. This and that. Guys, I'm just not buying it. Because the world that I know, when they want control or want something, they take it. They don't write books. When they want something, they kill. Look at the American Indians. They didn't write books and say, "Oh, y'all need to give up the land." No, they just killed them. Right, and took their land. So that I just want to allow that for sake of argument. That's not the world that I know that wants to write books about control. Okay, that's not the world that I know. When the world wants something, they take it and they kill. They don't write books. Okay. All right, guys. So we're a little off track today, but just have a lot on my mind. We're on the right track, and I want to recommend Standing for Truth and the channel. I'm not really recommending. I'm telling you guys, you need to join because they're covering all topics. And I just want to throw one more thing out there: that the topics that are the main topics that are in the main topics. You know, the resurrection. They don't really like talking about that. The Red Sea parting, the Exodus, the Ark. The main topics has a lot of substantiated evidence. I don't, maybe not substantiated, but a lot of evidence supporting those things. It's not just a story in a book, in a verse, in a topic. There's a lot of stuff. Grant you, there's a lot of stuff against it. There's a lot of stuff supporting it too. So it's not just, we're not just unarmed here. Okay? Guys, we're on YouTube at Preach Facts. And it says it right here, guys. 46 verse 3. I am God. End of story, man. If you take nothing else away the world, know that God is God and you are a man. God has a plan for you. But you have options and freedom and choices to a certain extent. And to say that God isn't real, there's not even words that can express missing the mark, falling short, being wrong. Those words don't even come close to the position that you're in, if that is your stance. There's not words to express missing that mark. I just don't want to be the one found in that position. Because, like I said, there are no words to express missing the point. Or missing that point after enough due diligence. So guys, I love y'all. Come back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow. It's every day. We'll get back to our study hopefully. Well, yeah, we're definitely on our study. We're 46 chapters in, y'all. From square one. We've been since Genesis 1. We're in 46 verse 3. Y'all have a good day.